Hi, and welcome to Filmmakers Compass Podcast, a show where we talk about movies and, well, we're movies. I'm D-Man, joined by CP. And CP, we have actually a lot of things to talk about this week because there's some big news in movie production companies.
Don't know what you're talking about at all. Nothing really exciting happens.
It's okay, I'll bring it up. I got the headlines right here.
Cool. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad you studied your pre-production notes. Thanks. If we don't do pre-production, no.
We don't even do production, so you know.
Mean, it's lucky we record this at all, because how many times do we talk on the phone, we don't record anything, and then we're like, we should have recorded that. What the hell?
Yeah, I know.
No, I'm just kidding. We do pre-production. Otherwise, how would we know who to give shout-outs to? So let's get into it. All right. First up in our shout-outs is Eric Drucker, who chimed in and said, love that USA won it. They showed my favorite Avs players crying, which was tough, but then they showed my guy Brock from the Avs winning, and I was like, let's fucking go. Also, I took my dog for a walk before the game, saw a bald eagle flying around, and I knew USA had it.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. I know you're in Colorado, and I don't know exactly what state has the most, bald eagles, but that sounds about right. That tracks.
Yeah, that's legit.
He goes on to say, and I'm sorry to any of our Canadian listeners, but also Canada can suck it. Both women and men lost to USA in OT. Let's go, baby. So Drucker, I love your enthusiasm, your patriotism, and I love that you saw a bald eagle. Also, it's really cool you have a dog. I love dogs.
Also, you know what? I'm with Drucker. Last week we weren't friends with Canada. They were our rivals.
I mean,
they be friends again, but
yeah, we're friends. I love Canadians. Shout out to some of my other chats that I talk to people in. All you Canadians. Next up, UFO 111 on Instagram said, let's go. Gonna be hard tomorrow against Canada, though. So that's replying to the post, obviously, that last week we talked about Miracle and the 1980 gold medal winning USA hockey team.
Shout out to the men's USA hockey team for winning gold.
Shout out to the men's USA hockey team. Shout out to the women's USA hockey team. Congratulations.
Great
you guys
games.
Were stunning. It was actually the women's team that got us to talk about Miracle, because that wasn't even on our radar. And then CP was like, did you watch the women's game? It was awesome. And I was like, I did watch it.
Yep.
And it was incredible. The only thing about the men's was that it was on at like 5 a.m.
Yes, I did get up at 5 a.m. I did not crack a beer, got a cup of coffee, and watched the game. And boy, was it a good one, D-Man.
Well, here's the thing. This is you're priming us for our next shout out, because that was the morning after Ivor and Monique's movie night, which was incredible. So shout out to you guys for hosting us again. Movie night was awesome.
Shout out. Thank you so much.
You guys really put on a fun movie night. So we watched 1989's The Killer. Is it The Killer or The Killers?
The Killer.
The Killer, because it's referring to him as an assassin.
Him as the assassin, yeah.
Yes. And there's quite a few things to say about this night. But first of all, John Woo, well done.
Yep.
I know why you have your reputation now. I've never seen The Killer. But here's two things that stand out to me from that night, CP. First of all, watching a movie with my wife, Steph, is insane. So
I'm going to start bringing her along to everything because she makes it way better.
We had some drinks and wow. So we're watching The Killer. It's dubbed from 1989. It's a like Hong Kong action movie. And she's like yelling at the screen, like, get him, come on. And then like somebody would die and she's like, no, you idiot.
I believe she yelled at some point, how hard is it to kill somebody?
Yeah. And I think I looked at you. I was like, we got to talk about this on the podcast. So, and then she kept standing up, and she was sitting right in front of Ivor. So even though I know he knows this movie, he was like, Steph, sit down, Steph.
My very favorite part was like probably 2/3 of the way through the movie, it like cuts out and just does like a fade to black, and then it like picks up another scene, and she turns around in the middle of it and goes, Ivor, this was the best movie ever.
Yeah. So, side note, she was claiming that she had seen this movie before, right? And I'm like, she didn't see it. There's no way. it ends up she has seen it before. She saw it with her dad. I
Oh,
talked to
really?
her. Yeah, I talked to my father-in-law, and he was like, "Yeah, we used to watch like they had one of those on-demand channels, and this movie was on one time."
No way.
Yeah, so they have seen it. Ivor, I was wrong. And Steph, tip of the cap, watching Hong Kong action movies. And the one she saw originally, I'm assuming, was not even dubbed.
Probably an actual, yeah,
Yeah.
Cantonese.
So they were watching it, but I'm like, that's really cool. And then,
That is
okay,
cool.
so second of all, I just got to give a little tip of the cap to Ivor and Monique for just hosting an incredible party. Food was great. You guys had some incredible sliders. I know a couple people brought some stuff, but a lot of appetizers and all that. Good drinks. Ivor, I know your collection was pretty good. We were drinking a little Hypnotic. It worked. Uh, so thanks, Ivor. But this
Oh,
time,
man.
CP, we had quite a group. I think the last time it was just Ivor, Monique, you, me, and Steph. So
Yeah.
this time there was a lot of people, and that made it a lot more fun. So,
Julian, who pretends like he listens to the podcast but doesn't.
well, that's
Oscar. Yeah.
that's where I was
All
going
your
with
friends.
this. Is we actually got the chance to meet Julian in person.
I had met Julian before,
Oh,
so
maybe I had to actually, but we got to talk to him about movies. And it was fun because apparently they had a bunch of questions that, him and Ivor that they wanted to ask us about some stuff, of which you were very well prepared. I was not. So well done, CP.
sorry. I actually watch movies for the movie podcast. Who knew?
Julian, I'm just really glad that you listened to the podcast. I had fun hanging out with you. Killer was awesome. And there's a couple other things, CP, we got to mention. So first of all, as far as movie night goes, shout out to Ivor for allowing Gus to swing by. He was all,
Mm,
I think Ivor at first was like, he's like, sure, like as far as a party goes, but he was like, but he's gonna miss the movie. And I was like, I think Gus just wants to hang out. So, and then we did and had a great time. Now, CP, here's where things get interesting. You left. And then Ivor showed us his little movie den off to the side,
yeah.
put on Star Wars A New Hope,
Nice.
which was amazing. And then guess what we watched after that?
Star Wars Empire Strikes Back.
James Cameron's Aliens.
Wait, what?
Yeah, we
How
stayed up
late
till
did
like
this movie night go?
we watched another movie till like 2 a.m. Well, 1:30.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Aliens, huh?
Yeah, it was
I love
awesome.
aliens.
Steph, well, she'd never really seen it. She watched about two-thirds of it and then fell asleep. But
Was she like yelling in the middle of it?
no, I think she went a little too far the other way and now she
Mm,
was like really quiet.
gotcha.
But Aliens was awesome. So it was fun hanging out with everybody. Monique, even at one point, busted out records. And this was really funny. And you were there when they were busting out the records, right?
No, I
Oh, okay.
wasn't.
Yeah, she busted out records.
I left early. As soon as the Killers was over, I was like, I'm out of here. I'm like, I gotta get up to watch the hockey game at 5.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay. So what was funny about the records is she's like, "What song do you guys want me to play?" And people just start yelling out songs because streaming. You're just
And
like,
you
"Oh, play."
yelled Michael Jackson.
No, but like you can only play the songs that are on the records that are right there. So even if
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh, we have this artist," you're like, "There's only 10 songs on this record."
Yeah.
So like it was fun because it was like a flashback to physical media and just sort of like having to enjoy the music you have. And I think that's part of if you go back like physical media, you used to listen to all the songs on an album because it wasn't just a playlist of someone's greatest hits.
Yeah. That's true.
So it's kind of fun. But overall, movie night, what a success, Ivor. So
Wow. I mean, I'm bummed that I missed like 2/3 of movie night. I only watched one movie.
yeah, we threw on quite a few. So it was fun and Ivor shared his collection and it was great. So
And shout out to Gus. I haven't seen that dude since I think his like wedding.
yeah. Yeah. Well, you filmed his wedding, so yeah. Uh no, it was cool. He got to come hang out. So thanks, Ivor. But Ivor also had a comment for us. He said, Wonder Man. Dustin, give us your thoughts. I think it might be the best Marvel TV. So here's the thing. I haven't watched Wonder Man yet, although I'm going to. Steph and I are going to watch it. And I've actually heard the same thing, that it's in the conversation for one of the best Marvel shows of all
Not
time.
true.
Oh, you have seen it.
Yeah, and the animated 90s X-Men is the best Marvel thing
Okay. Well,
ever.
if we
So
do a
there you go.
distinction
Sorry.
between
Sorry.
live action and animation, where does it land?
It's
Like,
okay. Yeah, it's towards the top because all the live action stuff sucks. But just correcting Ivor,
oh, okay.
animated X-Men is the best.
All right, there we go. There you go, Ivor. Well, that does it actually for shout outs. I did want to say happy birthday to a few people before we move on. First up is none other than my dad, who
Oh,
happy birthday. His birthday
happy
is
birthday,
one
Ray.
day after mine, and my sister, whose birthday is exactly 1 week after mine.
Happy birthday,
So,
Steph.
and then happy birthday to listener Boone. So,
Happy birthday, Boone. And sorry about Canada.
yeah, sorry, Boone. I know he's in Minnesota, but Boone, you have some. I don't know if you have Canadian roots or Canadian DNA or something, but he's got a lot of Canadian friends.
Shout out I got to listener Brian Tenbosch, who agreed to come on the show and talk about the movie Backdraft because he's a firefighter.
Oh, miss you,
And
Brian. I can't wait for you to
that
come
will
on the
be
show.
fun, dude. So
Yeah, that's going to be a good movie to talk about. I know. I didn't Ivor mention he had just rewatched it, so
talked about it at movie night.
I hope Drucker. I hope he rewatched Backdraft with us because hopefully that's a really good conversation.
Will be fun.
All right. Well, CP, I'm going to throw it over to you. Instead of box office breakdown this week, we are doing our pop culture minute.
That's right, D-Man. Some exciting news or not exciting news, depending on what side of this coin you fall. Netflix has officially pulled out of the conversation of purchasing Warner Brothers. They withdrew their offer formally, which is just wild because literally as of a week ago, all the articles were still saying that there was no way Paramount was going to come out on top of this deal and Netflix was going to be victorious.
So here's the thing, and this is what's interesting about this is obviously Paramount raised their offer, and there's a great quote from is it Ted Sarandos, the CEO
Mm-hmm.
of Netflix, where he's basically like, "This deal's great at a good price, but we're not going to overpay." Essentially, that's not quote
Yeah, yeah,
paraphrasing here, but
yeah.
he's basically like,
It
we're
was
not
like
going
a
to
nice. It was
overpay.
like a nice to have, not a must have type deal.
Exactly. He was like, if the price is good, we'll do it. But what's nuts is there actually was a contract signed. So Netflix buying Warner Brothers Discovery was a deal. That was not like the framework of a deal or it was a handshake right now. Like they have a contract. So Paramount upping their bid is considered a hostile bid, meaning that they're still trying to buy something that technically is no longer on the market.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. I mean, there's a history of hostile bids, mostly in, corporate America, but that's nuts. You rarely hear about that. Most of the time when people agree to a deal, they just say like, "Hey, even if the money's better over here, even if it's better for shareholders and not just like an outright better deal, they're like, we're still going through with this because, strategically, we think we're a better partner with Netflix or whatever,
Yep.
right? So we want to be with Netflix. Like it almost never happens, and it happened. I think what's interesting about this, and we talked about this if you go back a few episodes when the bids were coming in, was that with the Netflix deal, they promised that they would honor the 45-day theatrical window for all feature films produced under like the Warner Brothers banner or everything, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
Netflix doesn't really put movies in theaters, and the ones they have, it's very limited run.
Just
In
to
some,
be Oscar qualifying,
right.
like the two
Sometimes it's
weeks.
for qualifying, or like I
Yeah.
know they're doing like a really limited run of Peaky Blinders where it's going to be in theaters, but it's like 6 theaters in LA for 1 day. Like
Yeah.
they're not releasing it in
Yeah.
theaters. So I think what was interesting about this is there was a great fear that like down the line, Netflix would sort of walk back or abandon that theatrical window because it goes against what Netflix does,
The
right?
entire business model is get it out on streaming, have subscribers.
And I'm not saying that they're not saying the 45-day theatrical window in bad faith. I think they're saying that in good faith. They're like, no, we'll honor it. Like that's great. But what I think happens is like you think about any two corporations that, one buys the other, they're like, no, we bought this other company because we want their talent. We're not going to fire anybody and everything. And then like 2 years later, they're like, we're shutting that down and everybody from those divisions is fired.
Yeah.
Even though that's not what they said and maybe not what they intended, but you're like, that's what happens. And I have a feeling that if Netflix did end up with Warner Brothers, or even still does, because who knows at this point, but I have a feeling like 2 years from now or something, they're going to be like theatrical. It just doesn't really make sense.
Well, and that was, that was the big fear. James Cameron came out adamantly against this. Chris Nolan came out adamantly against this. A lot of people who are true Hollywood icons were really concerned because they're like, eventually, over time, Netflix is just going to collapse this down into a same day release, and then they'll probably just phase out theatrical altogether. And movie theaters, as we know it, is done because the big fear was the consolidation of Warner Brothers Discovery and Netflix into this new super studio was going to contain, was going to control 40 to 50% of Hollywood.
Yeah.
And that was just a scary thought for a lot of people.
Well, and then on the flip side, you have the Ellisons and Paramount buying Warner Brothers Discovery, and that that comes with some of its own
I mean, there's a lot
caveats.
of regulatory hurdles this is going to have to overcome if the Ellisons are able to acquire this, right?
Yeah, because you talked about it. They're sort of gung ho on AI. It seems like they're definitely profit driven, not necessarily artist driven. And what I
Hmm.
mean by that is like there's already been rumors, again, nothing confirmed, but like that if they were to acquire Warner Brothers, they would greenlight DC projects, but sort of going over the heads of DC,
Yeah.
being like, we would own it, so we're going to greenlight these projects that we would
Yep.
want to see, even if that's
Yep.
not part of DC's plan.
Hmm.
So that's interesting. And then obviously there's the Saudi element, which is that, to secure the funding and backing against their leverage, they have Saudi money coming in, and you're wondering with like the regulatory hurdles and Saudi money, and how does that influence the art? Are the artists, are they going to be directed to have certain messaging? Are there things that are going to
Hmm.
be on limits or off limits?
Yeah.
Uh, what does that mean? You
Yep.
know, and I don't know. No one knows yet. We'll have to see it play out, but it's like kind of a in the office when they talk about like scenarios and they're like the best scenario is like win win win.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
This one it's not lose lose, but you're kind of like both sides have real downsides here.
Yeah.
I don't know that we're getting a win 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 like Netflix, because I heard if basically they signed a contract, if Brothers Discovery walks away from that contract, they owe Netflix like $2 billion. It's like 2.8 billion or something just for walking away. So Netflix made like 2 billion just by going into this deal.
Yeah. Right.
That's nuts. And then for Paramount, they would get Warner Brothers. So it's like win, win, and then as us the consumers, the moviegoers, do we get a win?
Yeah. Yeah. Eh, I mean, it's tough to say. I mean, the Ellisons have reiterated a commitment to theatrical releases. So if you want to see movies in theaters, I think that that is a win. However, having, Paramount, Warner Brothers, Discovery, this massive conglomerate, which is two studios and dozens of cable channels and other media content. And again, we're combining
Two
Discovery Plus,
studios.
HBO, and Paramount Plus into one potential super streamer. This is still not good for consumers. This is still not good for artists.
Yeah.
The real win would be like we just need some anonymous billionaire who just likes making movies to like just drop like $100 million and just buy it and then keep making Warner Brother films as Warner Brothers.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
we'll see. We'll see. So I just think it's crazy that a hostile bid actually won here. It's just so rare that you hear that. Like normally when people pick a deal or it's like an NBA player signing a contract with a team and then being like, just kidding. You're
just
like,
kidding. Yeah.
what? you signed a contract. You're like, yeah, well, here's the buyout. It cost me X amount to get out of this contract. I'm going to a different team. You're like, again, I don't even know if that's possible in their collective bargaining agreement, but like that's what it would feel like.
Yeah.
Some guy being like, I'm just gonna break my contract and go somewhere else. You're like, whoa,
Wild.
that's crazy. So I also, while we're having, I mean, the pop culture minute, but this has gone on longer than a minute. But
Yeah. Pop culture 12 minutes.
pop culture minutes. Uh, you posted something to our FCP account on Instagram that was really interesting. Can you elaborate?
Yes. Gen Z is discovering physical media, and apparently they are all in on it. So much to the fact that not only have sales of physical media increased over the past year, but the profitability of video rental stores has increased over this past year, which blows
Wow.
my mind because I didn't know there were any video rental stores still around other than our friends at Blockbuster up in Bend, Oregon, and a couple of obscure ones like Scarecrow Video in Seattle. And I know there's one in LA, but
I've been there.
I know you
Uh,
have.
Shout out to Ryan. He took us there, and you know what? It was awesome. We saw. Did I ever talk about this on the podcast?
No, you don't talk about anything good. You just talk about, sorry.
Oh, well, no, I actually went to this movie rental place and they have a theater right next door. And we went to go see the original Fast and the Furious.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane, dude. I forgot how amazing Fast and the Furious actually is because this movie was exhilarating, quotable. People were cheering. Like, I couldn't even remember how many lines, I didn't even know how many lines I know. Like, nobody likes the tuna here, asshole. And then it's like, watch your back. And then they like get into a fight, and I'm like, oh my God, I remember all this.
That's pretty
Um,
awesome.
what is it? It doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile, winning's winning. Like, I could quote that movie endlessly. I was like, dude, no wonder they got an entire franchise out of this. Cause that was a bit of a time capsule, but so much fun. I couldn't even believe how much I enjoyed it. Because I remember watching it and like not loving it when I was younger.
In like 2000s.
And when
Yeah.
I say loving it, I'm talking about like, right, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. Like, I love these movies. I was like, I never really felt that way about Fast and Furious. But it's like, go watch it in a theater with other people who love it. And it was awesome.
Dude, that's dope.
But while we're on the topic of video rental places, so moving away from my experience in LA, back to the conversation. One of the interesting things is like when you look at the studios and what they've done over the last decade, maybe 15 years, you realize they've like literally torpedoed their own revenue models. So, like, if
Yeah.
you go, let's go back because we're going to talk about something, but we're going to go back to the 80s here. And like the revenue models were like box office ticket sales at theaters, ad revenue on television, and like sponsorships and product placement and all that. And then you had physical media. I mean, those are just the big three, but like obviously you could dig deeper, but like the
Mm-hmm.
big three.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, they have literally, with streaming, they got rid of one of the richest advertising models in television, which was advertising money. I
Yep.
mean, this is like, you go back to the 90s, like big freaking money. In fact, so big that actors that were on hit sitcoms and television shows, if you were to make it to syndication, used to get residuals. Like actors today probably still get checks in the mail per month for like 10 grand, 100 grand. If you were on Friends, probably a million.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a lot. And they literally like they tanked that model because they basically eliminated advertising when they introduced all of the streamers.
Yep.
So now we're seeing that advertising's creeping back into streaming, and there's tiers with ads and tiers without. But like they tanked it because the prices are way different than it was when they were on television.
Yep.
So they literally like busted their own model. And then with streamers, it's like all the eyeballs went from television to streaming. So you're like,
Yep.
nobody's even watching over there, so we can't charge ads over here anymore. Fuck.
Yep.
Then you have the theatrical release or the box office revenues because you with streaming, people now they don't go to the theaters very much. They had to raise prices, which compounded people not going because now they're like, it's so damn expensive to go to one movie. And you have a bunch of empty theaters, and instead of being able to get like this slate of awesome movies coming out, everything's based on IP, intellectual property, or it's a sequel or a remake. Like that's what we get in the theaters now because they're like, hey, we just it's hard to make money at the theaters. In fact, people every year there's like another article. Is this the year that theaters will disappear? It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, dude, physical media. They used to be able to print cash on a movie that they already made money from.
Well, not only was there a long tail in terms of the distribution return, there were a number of films which were made knowing that they would fail in the box office, but over the long term, be
They'd make money.
successful on physical. And the bigger thing is, depending on who you put on the cover, especially in the early 2000s, you could put an aging Schwarzenegger or Stallone or Van Damme on a DVD cover and make millions of dollars selling it in Asia just because of the star who was in the film.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Though, but if you think about what they did with streaming, I mean, they literally nuked
All
those
three of those
three.
revenue models for a loss generating streaming system, which costs more to run than
The
you're getting.
subscriber memberships pay for.
Well, and I think the problem is when streaming first came out, I think a lot of studios were equating it to something like HBO,
Yeah.
right? And the idea was, hey, well, we already have premium content that people are paying for. So what's the difference between whether this is on a channel or a streamer? And the difference is on HBO, you can run the math and you can say, okay, we have to be broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 4 weeks a month. We
Mhm.
know how much content we need to be able to produce and stream, what that cost is. And then as long as we're charging our subscribers this, we're making money. The problem is with a streamer, it's all on demand.
Yeah.
And you have to
And
keep feeding the machine so that all the different subscribers across the board feel justified in paying the subscription fee.
well, and then you think about theatrical releases. They used to go to uh physical media. They went to, whatever it was, Betamax, VHS, then
Mm-hmm.
DVD,
Mm-hmm.
Blu-ray. But the idea was that you had a separate revenue model associated with the same product. You got a second run with the same thing. Now, when they add it to a streamer, they don't charge me anymore for well, they do, yearly, but for that one movie. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, I just get it as a subscriber. You're like, they lost like an entire revenue model.
Yep.
And then if they're killing theatrical windows, and they are, they used to be like 90 days or, some movies were in, Home Alone was in theater for like a year.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like 45 days and sometimes less than that if the movie's not even super popular. And they put it on a streamer, and well, you're literally training people's behavior to be like, I'll just wait for it to come on streaming because I don't want to pay the exorbitant fees to go to the movie theater for a movie that I'm going to get for free in about a month.
Yeah. I
Oh my
agree.
God, dude. And then, I mean, you know
Wild.
me, I work in marketing and the advertising dollars are, dude, I told you before, I had a conversation with one of my friends and he was like, why don't they, like, I don't want ads on streaming. And I was like, dude, I guarantee you, whatever the highest tier that everybody could pay for a streamer is, if they're doing advertising right, they should make like 10 times more.
Yeah, right.
Like, it will out earn. I mean, I was like, it literally supported television for like 3 to 4 decades.
Mm-hmm.
So, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, more than that, if you go back to like I Love Lucy and all that, but I mean, just when people were making like rich people money, you're
Yeah.
like, dude, just nuts that I can't believe. Because even now, like if you were to get residuals for a show on streaming, you're getting like pennies on the dollar.
Well, it's just weird at how quickly they were to kill, you know, the golden goose that was, making all this stuff uber profitable in the name of the pursuit of this shiny new thing, which cost more and made everyone less.
Yeah, I will say, as the consumers, we can at least tip our cap that we have got some really great television, particularly on
Hmm.
streaming. So, I mean, as consumers, I wouldn't say we've totally lost. One, overall, it's not necessarily cheaper than cable, but we get everything on demand. We have gotten some really good content. We got more content than we had before, even if not all of it's great. And we can save money if we don't want to go to the theaters and just wait.
For sure.
Because think about it, like back in the day, if you didn't want to go to the movie theater, when a movie came out, unless you knew somebody who was going to buy it, you still have to buy it. So
Yep.
you're like, well, maybe I'll just go see it then. And maybe I don't want to own it. Maybe it's cheaper for me to go to the theater because I don't want to pay the $20 or, whatever it is for a DVD.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm not going to
Yeah.
buy all the movies I want to watch. I'd rather just spend the $7 at the theater and get to see it and then call it a day. And if I really love it, I'll buy it.
Yep.
So they've turned everything upside down, dude. Oh my God. How are the robots going to solve this? I don't think they can.
No, just Gen Z are still buying DVDs is what's going to save this.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Maybe a return to
thank
physical
you.
media. Shout out Ivor. I know we didn't see it, but he's got his collection. So it's pretty awesome. All right. Well, that actually takes us into our conversation this week, which
Speaking of physical media and theatrical releases,
we are going back in time, CP. Here, take a second. Jump into that time machine with me. Yeah. We are back in 1982. And
so we
yeah,
just
tell us
watched.
tell us
There's a
about it.
great documentary. It's actually a series, but since we didn't watch it on television in the original form, we watched it streamed. So it was one uber long documentary, and it's called 1982: The Greatest Year in Geek. And yeah, definitely a lot of thoughts, D man. I know you have some.
Well, first of all, I want to acknowledge that when this documentary starts off, I love the fact that they jump right in and acknowledge Star Wars. And they're talking about fandom and geekdom and all this, but they literally jump like they're in 1977 and they're like, man, Star Wars is just amazing. And like that might be the best year for geeks of all time. And then they're like, hold on. Just kidding. Maybe it's 1982. But I mean, I just love the record. I mean, anything that they show Star Wars makes me happy.
Well, given obviously we
I
know
didn't think we were
that.
going to get it. 1982. There's no Star Wars movie.
I
It's
mean, you would have
77, 80, and 83.
thought,
So
yeah, yeah, that's kind of weird that the greatest geek movie of all time is not part of the year that they praise as the best, you know,
yeah.
for
But I
geek
love
cinema.
I love that Star Wars was there. But I mean, I guess starting off the conversation, if we do a rundown of some of the movies from 1982, just to give people an idea of what we're talking about here.
Yeah,
And they do a good job of sort of like a B-roll run of like all the different movies. But you have, E.T., Tootsie, Rocky 3, Blade Runner, The Thing, Tron, Star Trek 2, Gandhi, Sophie's Choice, The Verdict, Conan the Barbarian, Poltergeist, First Blood, Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
the
That's a
Dark
nuts.
Crystal,
Yeah,
Star Trek: Wrath of Khan,
that is an
First Blood,
insane
Rocky
list.
3. Yeah, it's wild.
So, I mean, it's definitely a great year. I don't think there's any denying that. I think the debate is just around which year is the best.
Yeah,
But 1982 is nuts. And the documentary does take time to sort of acknowledge what life was like in 1982, which was
yeah,
cool.
yep,
I like how they acknowledged that at that time, we were talking about physical media. VHS technology or Betamax, whatever, was around, but it was not in everybody's home. It was
yep.
not economical at this point. I don't know. Do you know what it cost back then? It's kind
I
of a
mean, I don't
lot.
know what they cost. I know in 1987 when RoboCop was released, the sale price of the RoboCop VHS tape was $120 a tape.
Yeah. So I mean,
So
that gives you an idea.
it
Yeah.
wasn't super accessible for a lot of people, which is why we had video rental stores.
Right, because in the 90s, you start to see like VHS players being built right into TVs.
Hmm.
People were starting, the costs were coming down where, it was probably went from like 120 to 100 to 50 to 20. And it was like you could sort of have your own VHS library at home of like your favorites. So I know we grew up, we were born in the 80s, but grew up in the 90s and VHS was around. It was
Hmm.
accessible. But in the 80s, especially in 82, I don't think it really was. It was, maybe like an Atari. Like one friend had it out of the friend group, and then everybody would go to that house to like play. So I can't say for sure. I wasn't born in 82, or I wasn't alive in 82. If anybody was and they want to comment on that, would love to hear it. But yeah, it was probably more like that, where it's like somebody had a VHS, and then you'd go over to that friend's house in their basement and like go watch a movie
Yeah,
or something.
yeah,
So I don't know. It's interesting because what that means is that if you wanted to watch a movie back in the day, you had to go to the theater.
yep.
So that's how you saw movies. Maybe they got broadcast on TV and maybe you had a friend who had a VHS player. But generally, if you wanted to see a movie, you had to go to the theaters. And
Yep.
what a great time to be alive, CP. I wish it was still like that. Man, I love going to the movies, and I would be sad if that was, ever taken away.
Well,
But
and
it's,
in a lot of the filmmakers were talking about how, part of the reason why these movies had such a lasting impact is the people who went to see it, they were seeing it together. And
yeah,
so there was this brotherhood of the geek that was built between people who literally were waiting, 45 minutes, an hour around the block to get into the theater to see Star Trek Wrath of Khan,
that's
right?
awesome. And they actually, I don't know if anybody knew this, but that is actually where the term blockbuster comes from, is, people would be, lined up around the block. It busted the block. So yeah, anyway, but it makes sense given like I was just talking about Fast and Furious and how much fun I had in a theater full of people that were super enthusiastic about the movie. I don't think I would, be talking so enthusiastically about it if I just watched it at home by myself. It
Great.
was that I was there. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
And you think about you and I, even, we've been to tons of midnight shows. We had that 24-hour Star Wars marathon. And even when we were kids, we went to go see Lost World, Jurassic Park, and Star Wars, and all these things. We have all these memories, but they're communal memories.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why when people are looking at 1982 as, the best year of the geek, they're remembering all the good times they had going with their friends and being in a theater and
Yep.
seeing it with that audience
Yep.
versus, just, watching something at home.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of makes sense. But one of the things I did want to talk about was we mentioned VHS, right?
Yeah.
Something that I don't think people talk about either is like in the 90s, we had the opportunity to record VHS.
Yeah.
So like they would air a movie on ABC, maybe it was like The Wonderful World of Disney or something. You could throw in a blank VHS tape and hit record. Now, I don't know if that's legal, but you could do it.
Mm-hmm.
You're making a copy technically.
Yeah.
And trust me, that copy didn't have an FBI warning, so I think it was fine. I think it's only when that FBI warning's there and you make a copy of that thing. But no, I mean, like I used to do that. I would have blank tapes, just a stack ready. So if anything came on TV that I wanted to record, I could do it. And that was a lot
Mm-hmm.
of fun. Like I think you remember at one point I recorded Dragon Ball Z
Yep.
and I was very good about I'd wake up for midnight run, record the episode, and I had them separated just enough blocks of time on a VHS so that I could get all the, episodes in order. And if I missed an episode, I left whatever, 32 minutes of VHS tape. And
Just
I
to
knew
make
how
sure
long
you
it,
could get the replacement
yeah,
on.
and I knew how long it was because I would just record something else in its place, right? So you're
Mm-hmm.
like, because you can't fast forward and know what the timestamp is, but you just record like 32 minutes. You're like, there we go. Now I
Mm-hmm.
just go back to this moment and hit record. Boom. Uh, but
Yep.
I miss all that. Like it was fun, dude. And then it's like, I don't know, you just pay $5 to a streamer and I have all the DBZ. It felt like,
Okay. First of all, that's not the case.
oh,
It's
I don't know
like
how much fun.
$250 for
Yeah,
all the episodes
Funimation.
of
Yeah.
Dragon Ball Z. So don't undersell it here, man.
Oh man. But I don't know. There was so much fun stuff. Like, I'm a Spielberg guy. I love E.T. So that's definitely got to be up there. I mean, when they talked about E.T., I even teared up a little bit. I was like, oh my God. Now I got to watch E.T.
Well, it was also interesting in the fact, and I didn't know this, that I mean, I knew that Spielberg produced Poltergeist, but it was really interesting in the doc how they were talking about how, he was so invested as a producer and he really deep down wanted to be directing it, but because he was under contract with ET, he technically couldn't. So he was more like a helicopter producer,
Flash director.
very much making his influence known on set during the shooting of Poltergeist.
Well, and they do mention, because I think the director was Hooper, was that his name?
Hmm. Hmm.
That there was maybe a tension there Like, Spielberg was literally either over his shoulder or making some of the calls. But
Yeah.
that they were like that was more of an external, people were projecting onto them this level of tension where they were like, they both were like, it was a cool collaboration. I'm glad it worked.
Yeah. And I mean, and Poltergeist is a, you know, great movie that people still revere to this day. So it's not like it, I mean, they made a great piece of art. It made a lot of money in the box office. Everybody won, but yeah.
Well, one of the interesting things you bring that up is if you go back and watch that documentary on Disney Plus, there's a streamer. Uh it's Light and Magic, the story of industrial or of ILM.
Hmm.
They have a section on Poltergeist, and if you watch this section, I don't think there's any mention of Hooper, but there is of Spielberg. So like if you were to watch that in Light and Magic, I think you would assume that Spielberg was the director.
Well, it's always funny because when you watch Poltergeist, there are shots that feel almost identical to shot selection. Like the visual language of Poltergeist is so similar to the visual language of ET.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think a lot of people probably do think that Spielberg is the director, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, and we've talked about that at various times where they're like a Steven Spielberg movie or this, and what was it, Goonies? I think it says that at the beginning. It's like a Spielberg,
Yeah.
but you're like they're just,
Gremlins, yeah.
yeah, they're trading on that name where it's like really like he didn't direct it.
Yeah.
So anyway, interesting. But um, one of the things I wanted to talk about is everybody sort of mentions at this time, 1982, but really from like the late 70s, sort of the Spielberg, Lucas, rise with Jaws and Star Wars, and then all of the stuff they make with Indiana Jones and E.T. and all this. There's sort of this moment of like art meets commerce.
Yeah.
The old studio system is broken. There's these up and coming artists, and it's like this pure joy of cinema because we're getting all these new things. And it's funny because we talk about that, right? Jaws. But sure, it's based on a book, but what a great movie. Star Wars, totally original IP. Indiana Jones, totally original. E.T., totally original. There's all these things, and I'm just naming that because I said Spielberg and Lucas, but like all this stuff comes out, and now all of them have so many sequels. First Blood, there's a Rocky franchise. Or First Blood, there's a Rambo franchise. Rocky, there's a Rocky franchise.
Yeah.
Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Jaws. And you could just go on and on. I'm sure Poltergeist had sequels. I'm sure like so much of it ended up becoming like franchises. And you can almost see where like if you were to trace the breadcrumbs all the way back, uh this is where it started. This is, we still have theme park rides based on this same IP from the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we still have new movies and streaming shows based on the same IP.
Yep.
So, art meets commerce. One of the things I wanted to ask you, CP, is assuming right now we're in agreement that most major theatrical movies, right? Because we're getting a lot of original stuff on streaming, but most theatrical movies, they either need to be based on IP, a remake, or a sequel. When do you think we'll have another art meets commerce renaissance?
Oh, I think it's like 3 years away. Because part of it is we've
Oh, okay.
seen the success of things like A24,
Hmm.
right? That are doing original content. And one of the ways they're able to get away doing original content is by producing content that costs less, right? So you're
Yeah.
allowed to take the risk because this isn't, a $300 million Marvel movie. This is a $5 million,
Yeah. I was
you
gonna say
know.
like 20 million, maybe even.
So by spending less, I think we're opening up more opportunities for original content. And I think A24 is a good example because they've really been able to not just permeate culture. Like there's a lot of people who will go see a movie as soon as they see, oh, it's an A24 film. I'll check it out.
Interesting. Yeah.
And the other thing is A24 has a reputation when you look at either horror films or Academy Award nominated films and over the last 10 years, most of those, the ones are A24. So I think that they're building a business model that a lot of other people are going to look to in Hollywood and say, maybe we should change the way we're doing business.
Yeah, I mean, maybe one of the major comparables would be like Miramax in the 90s or,
Hmm.
even maybe New Line in the 90s. I know New Line ended up producing a lot of big blockbusters at one point, but when they started, they were doing a lot of more, lower budget or indie style stuff.
Yep.
And it is interesting because that's one of the things that you have to have maybe like a fresh injection of some people from the outside saying like, hey, we can do things differently. You think almost of like electric cars and then Tesla comes in.
Yeah.
Why didn't any of the major car companies make the Tesla? Why did it
Yeah.
take somebody from the outside with a different point of view to come in? And then everybody's like, oh, it seems so obvious now that it's like, how did none of you do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know, you just get complacent in the model you're in, and you're like, we're just going to operate within these rules. And then I guess somebody from the outside is like, why?
Yeah. They look at
Like,
it and go, there's a better way to do this.
you don't have to do it like that. And maybe that's what it takes. Or even, in my opinion, I'm curious at least about how technology will influence this art meets commerce. So, we all have a phone in our pocket, but basically we have a screen that's accessible to us pretty much 24 hours a day now. Because it used to be, right? You had to, sit in front of your TV or you had to go to your computer desk. Now it's like you could pull your phone out. I could literally put on Star Wars within 10 seconds of pulling my phone out. I mean, that just
Hmm.
what, in 1982, you couldn't, I mean, you'd have to wait for either another
Yep.
theatrical run or it's just crazy. So I'm interested, I guess, with like the Apple Vision Pro and VR and AR. And I wonder if, as far as an art meets commerce renaissance goes, if changing the medium up a little bit will allow for fresh voices to step in and tell stories in new and unique ways.
And I think we're seeing that already. I mean, a lot of young filmmakers are shifting to things like AI as a tool or vertical video as a medium, and we'll
Yeah.
just have to see how these things play out over the next few years.
And that, I don't know, that's interesting to me because when you go back to like the late 70s, early 80s, maybe they're still making 2 hour long theatrical movies. So the medium didn't change, but like they were remixing. They're saying like, what if we did this type of story, but in this genre? You think
Hmm.
Blade Runner is a film
Hmm.
noir, really, but they're like, what if you did it as a sci-fi film
Yep.
noir? Or, you think about Lucas is taking his idea of like Saturday morning serials and sort of Buck Rogers and saying like, well, what if we did it as like this giant sort of space western? And
Yeah.
you're, whoa, they're able to kind of remix, and that was fun because they got permission to do it. Where I think, if you were to go make those pitches back in the early 70s, people would be like, why would you do that?
Yeah. I think that's a good point.
So maybe in this case, it's not necessarily a remixing of genres, but you're remixing probably like a space western, but telling it in a new, unique way with, like you said, maybe like AI or in like a 3D space or something.
Well, I think the other big thing about why 1982 specifically, right, is the pioneers of pushing the limits of those films, either on the actor side or the director creator side, had proven themselves in the 70s at a point that people knew they were sure bets, right? We're
Hmm.
talking, Spielberg, Lucas, Cameron, other people like John
Zem
Carpenter getting The Thing, or
yes,
Stallone
Zemeckis is
movies,
coming
or
up. Yeah,
or even George Miller doing, Road Warrior, right? The idea is you're like, okay, these people have proven that they understand something about cinema that the studios were looking at and saying, they just made us a crap ton of money. They made movies that dominated the 70s. Okay, maybe we need to trust these guys a little bit and give them the chance to see what they can really do. Maybe Steven Spielberg knows more about storytelling than we do. So
yeah,
what if we just write him the checks that he wants and print money? And I think
yeah.
that was kind of the mindset that studios got in because they saw, in the decade before, these people coming up on the rise and breaking the cinema model that they'd previously seen.
Well, and I guess what's interesting is like, if we want original content, it's like I was in a group chat with my friend Matt Shula. Shout out. What up, Matt? And he was like, writing in all caps, I want original content. But it's like we say that, and then the Minecraft movie is like the highest grossing movie of 2025 or something. You know, uh, we say that, and then you go look at the box office top 10 for 20. It's all sequels, it's all
Well, and that's the
remakes.
thing, and it's because the Smashing Machine comes out and no one goes to see it.
Yeah. So you're,
Christie goes comes out and no one goes to see it. So what are you supposed to do?
and like part of it is the chicken and egg, what you're talking about, which is like, maybe if there were some people that are coming up making cool original stuff and the studios start handing them money and greenlighting it, we could get excited about it and go see it, and then that might change. But until that happens, right, you're kind of like, even as the audience, if there's not a lot of original content that we're excited about, then we're going to stick to what's familiar and
Hmm.
comforting and what we know. And that's the franchises and stuff that we already love. So, and again, I don't want to discount that nobody's doing anything original. It's mostly just happening on streaming. So
True.
it's just not happening
True.
at the theater.
Yeah.
So there's lots of original, unique content that's going on. It's just not in the theater.
Agreed.
So something else I wanted to talk to you about is CP, Siskel and Ebert,
It was interesting. They talked a lot about
D-Man and CP, you know what I'm
yeah.
saying?
They they did talk a lot about the emergence and the role that they had in shaping kind of pop culture at the time. But it was also funny because a lot of, I think, the major movies that came out in 82 did not seem to resonate with Cisco and Ebert.
Yeah, or at least they were critical of them in a way that time has sort of made look foolish.
Yeah.
Where you're like, wow, these were instant classics. But, when you're reviewing a movie in the moment, you're like, oh, I have problems with this, this, and this. And then, 50 years later, you're like, no, it was great. Well, 40, sorry.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I think the best example of that is, um, Ebert was scathing, had a scathing review of The Thing, which unfortunately
Yeah.
also opened the same weekend as E.T. And was widely considered a box office bomb in 82. Yet now it's regarded as a
Oh,
masterpiece of science
yeah.
fiction with cutting edge visual effects and one of the best horror movies ever made.
It still is
And
gory by even today's
oh,
standards.
totally. And at the time, people were like, John Carpenter, he lost it. Like, what's going on? And
Well, and I think what's interesting about Siskel and Ebert to me is like they sort of gained a certain level of celebrity as film critics.
mhm.
And I compare that to today, where it's like we have Rotten Tomatoes and people sort of look at film critics, meaning like the people usually writing for like major publications or newspapers, they look at it in an aggregate. But I feel like where they go for like that sort of celebrity opinion is like influencers. It's people
Yeah.
on social media now where they've kind of taken up this torch by Siskel and Ebert, and they sit there with praise and criticism for everything that's coming out, and that's where people look now,
Yep.
is social media. It's but they
Podcasts,
they
podcasters.
yeah, they blaze the trail for us, CP. So
I
we
know.
gotta give a tip of the cap to Siskel and Ebert. Thank you
That is pretty
guys.
cool. That is pretty cool.
Yeah. Uh, so this came up in the documentary. I just want to ask you one more time for your sort of definitive opinion here. But um, Blade Runner, narration or no narration?
It's so funny that there is a debate in that. I'm actually a big fan of the narration version of Blade Runner.
I
Now,
like the no narration.
really?
Yeah.
See, the thing is, the narration version for me tracks with what is a noir. In
Yeah,
terms
okay,
of
I
that
get you.
noir story, that noir comic, or even early black and white noir films, right? The idea of having the narrator. I think that the Harrison Ford narration really kind of ups that noir quality of the film.
They
So I
also
like it.
say apparently Harrison Ford did not want to read the lines for the narration, and this is more of a behind the scenes thing than it is like an opinion by us. But like it's interesting because he reads them so dry, almost like he hated doing it. And everybody was commenting that they're like, it kind of made it better because it comes across as like this almost cynical and it like matches the tone of the
Burnt out
movie.
detective that like is over everything. Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, I had to go in this diner and it was trash. And like,
Yeah.
instead of like saying it excitedly or being like, oh, I had to go into this diner and it was
Yeah.
amazing, he just
Yeah.
reads it so dry that it actually kind of works. But maybe I need to do a Blade Runner rewatch. It's been a
My problem
minute.
with Blade Runner is there's
I
like eight or
own
nine
it.
cuts. I'm like, how many am I watching here?
I own it. I have to see
What's
if
the
I have the
definitive version?
directors. I think I have. I bought a bundle where you get Blade Runner, what is it, 19 or 2049?
Nice.
And well, and then I think it was a three-pack bundle, and then you get the director's cut. But again, I don't know which cut. But now
I
maybe
only have the final cut.
I'm just gonna do a whole Blade Runner marathon, three movies,
Do
knock it
it.
out.
Knock it out. Let me know.
I personally, yeah, watching it, what I remember is enjoying sort of sitting with the characters without narration. I thought it was
Mhm.
so visually stunning, and I actually really do enjoy sort of wondering what they're thinking versus being told, I guess.
Yeah.
And I did enjoy that. Like he talks when like he's in his spaceship and he's sort of flying around the city. I just like the visual of it. And it's crazy because it's not like narration takes away the visual, but it's like when there's no narration, you're just sitting with what you see
Yeah.
and thinking about what you're seeing. You're not thinking about what he's saying.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that a lot. But again, that sounds like an indictment of all narration. I disagree. I think narration works in many instances. So I just prefer that in this instance.
Fair enough.
Um, another thought I had after watching this documentary is I really want to watch Megaforce now.
Oh my gosh.
I've
I've never
never
even
seen this.
heard of this Barry Bosway movie about like the G.I. Joes of motorcycle warfare. Like I don't know. That looks like a great Ivor, that's what you should show at the next movie night.
Megaforce. It
That
looks
sounds
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah, the other movie that I want to rewatch now, I almost want to just do another like three movies on a movie night, but I want to watch Road Warriors. I would love to watch Fury Road and Furiosa from Mad Max.
Okay, I don't understand why you're cutting out Beyond Thunderdome then.
I mean, I could watch the whole series, but those are the ones that are,
I,
incredible.
one of the gripes I had about the documentary was they mentioned Mad Max is coming out that year, but that's about it. I would
Yeah.
think that the influence that it had in kind of post-apocalyptic styles, the visuals that George Miller created in the movie and the influence that it's had, obviously as an action movie, it was groundbreaking with the stunts and I just am blown away that they're like, oh yeah, and Road Warrior 2, Mad Max 2, the Road Warrior came out, and you're like, that's it? Like, I mean, in my mind, Road Warrior is an incredible movie, and I freaking love it. And I was like, we get 1 minute on it, that's it?
Yeah. And I don't know. Now I want to rewatch it. So that's definitely on my list. Something else too that popped up was like, we mentioned um like Conan the Barbarian, Dark Crystal, some of these like fantasy level movies. I did not realize that D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, was that big back in the 80s. Now,
I
I
did not
should have.
either, but
I
Vin
should
Diesel
have.
did.
Because think about it, like I mean, it's a big part of like Stranger Things, and that's sort of where D&D. If you were to ask most people today where you know it from, it's probably Stranger Things.
Yeah.
And of
Yeah.
course, it's a literally. I think the first season takes place in like 1983, or 82, 83. So you go back and they're playing D&D in their basement. I didn't know that D&D was like this big thing. Like I never played it. Did you?
I did not, and I still have not. I'm cool.
Well, no, but like I don't know. I remember sort of being I knew people that played. I knew people that played like Magic the Gathering and had the cards, at school and different stuff. I just never was one that got into that sort of 10-hour campaign in a basement. Although I played with action figures, I was always doing role play. It wasn't like that was, escaping me. It was just I never did it as like that formal sort of campaign.
Yeah.
Probably should
Um,
have. It's funny you joke though about sort of like I'm cool because talking about like the year of the geek, I mean, one of the things that's interesting is when you go back, like a lot of this stuff, it was popular in its time, but being a geek was not cool.
no, not in any way.
And even when we grew up, like, I remember sitting next to my friend Chris in class, and uh there was like, oh, the Star Wars special editions are coming out. And I remember this guy, he's like, hey, you like Star Wars? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, me too. But it was like we had to whisper it, like, don't say it loud enough. I don't want anybody else to hear because, like, not that liking Star Wars wasn't cool, but it was like you'll be labeled a nerd or a geek.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's that funny joke from Friends. If anybody listening has watched Friends, where basically Chandler and Ross have a friend that they call Gandalf.
Yep.
And Joey's like, "What? Why do you call him Gandalf?" And they're like, come on, Lord of the Rings. Like you didn't read Lord of the Rings in high school?" And Joey's like, no, I was having sex in high school." But like this idea that like, yeah, I mean, if at that time, if you were caught like reading Lord of the Rings, I mean, you were probably playing D&D in your basement,
Yeah,
and you're
right.
you're a geek.
Hmm.
And let's face it, you go back to Breakfast Club, it's still in the 80s. I mean, people got labeled, probably still do, Mean Girls too. So I don't know. That was interesting because I do remember that growing up, where now it's like culturally cool to be into all that stuff.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
Star Wars night at Dodger Stadium, you know,
Yeah.
like it's cool now. But yeah, I don't know. Um, I do have a few more notes, CP, on this documentary, but um, one of the things that stood out too was they mentioned nudity in movies. So, which I feel like is somewhat,
I feel like it kind of went out of fashion
yeah,
in the early 2000s, like nudity for the sake of nudity. You know, you think about movies like American Pie, where you're like, well, part of the reason why people watch it is just because there's boobies on the screen, which is exactly what they were talking about in the 80s, to the point that, one of the movies, which also want to have a movie night on, they talk about is a low budget fantasy film called Sword and Sorcerer, which
yeah.
kind of is just some sword violence and nudity.
Yeah, well, it's funny because like the main character basically gets thrown through a wall in a fight, and he just ends up in a room with like a bunch of topless women sitting around like eating grapes or something. And he's like, "Oh, hello there," and like it says hi, and then like goes back to his fight. But it's like for like one scene, it's like they just threw him into a room full of boobies. You're like, I don't know if we would see that today. And obviously, like a lot of the teen movies back then, you think even like Revenge of the Nerds or um
Fast Times.
Porky's, and it was like, young teenage males in pursuit of boobies. I mean, even American Pie,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is kind of funny because yeah, like you think of like even 2006 or something was super bad, where it's like he's in pursuit of like hooking up with a girl, but like they're not really throwing nudity around,
Yeah.
particularly like in a very like aggressive sort of fashion.
Yeah.
So, and I think you'd probably, maybe rightfully so, get criticized today, where back then it was more like probably cheered.
Yeah.
Just a different time.
Totally different time.
So, but hey, maybe that's why it's the best geek year, because how are all these geeks
Well,
seeing
and,
boobies?
and that's one of my complaints, right? This documentary talks about how it's a geek year, yet it kind of devolves into why this is just a great year for cinema as a whole, right? It starts out very focused on really the sci-fi component of the
Yeah.
films that were released, Star Wars, Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan, E.T.,
God, I love ET.
The Thing, right? It goes into Blade Runner, but then it's just like, hey, there are also like a lot of just awesome movies like Rocky 3.
Yeah, I don't know if that was for the
And I
geeks,
don't
although
know
it
that
is
that's
fun.
for a geek. I thought that was just for everybody. Like,
Yeah, and then even they get into a whole section about like the 1982 Oscars, and basically the winner was Gandhi, when there's other movies like E.T. and The Verdict and I don't know, some different stuff where they're like, oh, and I like it was at that moment that I actually agree with you. I was sort of like, are we still talking about the geekiest year? Or are we just talking about 82 in
Yeah.
general right now?
If it just had been like 1982, the greatest year in movies, I would be like, okay, like, yeah, I see that. Like, there are great movies. But again, I guess the decision to not talk about Road Warrior, like a sci fi movie, and
Yeah.
instead talk about Fast Times at
Gandhi.
Ridgemont High or Gandhi, I'm like, well, those aren't necessarily geeky. Those are just movies, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we actually, if you want to hear our thoughts on Fast Times at Ridgemont High, we actually have an episode. Maybe
Yeah,
we'll share it this week,
it's
but
awesome.
yeah, you can go back and hear our thoughts on that. We won't dive too deep there, but love Fast Times, still holds up. And I don't know, I guess, the documentary overall ends with sort of a nostalgia for the movie theater and what made that year so special. I think it was, everybody sort of concludes, obviously classic movies, absolutely incredible
Hmm.
run in 82.
And a lot of films that went on to build massive franchises.
Right. But everybody was like, like the nostalgia for 82 is that we had to go to the theaters and we have so many great memories of the communal experience. Like
Yeah.
that's what has probably, not in the last 3 decades, but in maybe the last like 10 years has started to erode. Because we mentioned, I think on a different episode, how like crazy it was to be in the audience when in Infinity War they do the snap. And it was like dead silent and everybody starts, getting dusted or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was an experience. It felt like if you were there with everybody, it was better than if you'd just seen it at home. Um, Same thing like in Endgame, where it's like we all probably shed a tear when, spoiler alert, Iron Man dies.
Yeah.
Like it was crazy. Or even, Captain America when he gets Mjolnir.
Yeah.
It was way more fun to be there cheering with everybody than it would be to watch that at home alone.
Yeah.
In fact, if somebody asked me, oh, if you have a choice tomorrow, you can watch Endgame in a theater full of Marvel fans or watch it at home by yourself, I would choose theater 10 out of 10
Well, it's
every
coming
time.
back out in September, so get ready, son.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like 100%. That's where I'd rather see it. And probably the same thing with Star Wars. Like there's so many great movies that, yes, the big screen enhances the experience, but also being there with the fans,
Yeah.
and especially if you experience something for the first time, that blows you away.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so I guess the question then, CP, is 1982 the best movie to be a geek?
You mean the best year to be a geek?
Yes. What did I say? Best movie? Best
Yeah.
year.
I mean, it's really tough because as I said, I think that if we take it off and say, just looking at it from the perspective as a cinephile and a person that loves movie, it probably was an amazing year. Because some of the box office bombs we now revere as incredible movies, and some of the unexpected hits, you know, are massive movies. And it went on to build some amazing franchises and some characters that we love. Like, awesome year in cinema. I
Yeah.
mean, I was doing some digging, and I think that if the question is geek, I think you could make a case that 1999 was a pretty good year.
Name
You
some
know,
movies because I know Star Wars Phantom Menace came out
Star
that
Wars
year.
Phantom Menace. We also had The Iron Giant. We had The Matrix.
Oh, that's, yeah, excellent. What about
Um,
99? Is that The Mummy?
The Mummy came out. Absolutely. Let me swap over here. The Mummy. We got Galaxy Quest.
Is that Tim Allen one?
Yep. We got Toy
Yeah.
Story 2. We got The Blair Witch Project, Sixth Sense, Fight Club.
Mm,
These
that
are
is,
some of these are a little now we're kind of venturing more out, if we go into really mainstream cinema, we get Office Space, 10 Things I Hate About You, the South Park movie. We also get
uh,
Magnolia, The Green Mile. Like there's a lot in cinema that were some pretty heavy hitters coming out of there. But I think about that strip of like, if you're thinking just geek, there's a solid argument to be made.
Interesting. So 99. Okay. And then I
Ha-
think obviously we've talked before on this podcast about maybe one of the best years ever. So not if you're a geek or not, but you go to like I think it's like 93 or 94.
It's 94, and just gonna pull up some of the films that came out in 1994 for the audience. Shawshank Redemption, Forrest Gump,
Was that any good? Yeah.
Pulp Fiction, Legends of the Fall, The Lion King, The Santa Claus, Page Master, True Lies,
Do you remember Page Master? Oh my God.
yeah, True Lies, Speed, Clear and Present Danger, Time Cop, The Mask,
Oh,
Natural
he
Born
literally
Killers,
stopped time. Yeah.
The Professional, Stargate, Dumb and Dumber, Ace Ventura,
Wow.
Clerks,
You know,
The
when you say
Crow.
Ace Ventura, I don't know why, but the scene that I think of is the one where he climbs out of a rhino's butt. It's in When Nature Calls, but
Yeah.
that's always like, and he's like,
I always think of the part where he slams the sliding door and screams, then he opens up. Ah! I do that
yeah,
anytime I go to a sliding door at a party. Uh,
Shikaka.
so, I mean, you just look at that in terms of the pop culture relevance. I mean, again, we watch and talk about those movies to this day. We still quote them, but that strip of, I think there was a month, I think it was like October, where Shawshank Redemption, Pulp Fiction, Forrest Gump were like all in the theater simultaneously, and you're like,
That's
man,
nuts. What a lineup.
what do you pick to go see on a Friday night?
Well, I'm curious. Throw it out to our listeners. What year do you think is the best year to be a geek for movies? And do you think it's 82 or 99 or a different year?
I mean, sadly, I think at the end of the film, I still agree with the argument about 82. I just think my problem was they kind of deviated from their premise
Yeah,
and focused on less geeky, more mainstream movies than I wanted to spend a little more time in the, you know,
geekdom.
yeah.
Well, on that note, what would your top three movies be from 1982?
Ooh, D-man, that's tough. And I didn't think about it. So why don't you go first?
All right, I got you. We didn't even
E.T.
I'm gonna give an honorable mention. We didn't even mention it, and that's Tron.
Yeah. You're right,
I
Tron.
I don't think Tron holds up the way it was received at that time. Obviously, the sequels haven't really delivered, even, compared to its premise. But you gotta tip your cap to Tron for being a pioneer in computer generated imagery. And they mentioned in the documentary that it also was a movie that really started that took Disney in new directions. Because I guess in '82, Disney was not Disney the way we think of them today,
Yeah, that's true.
particularly when it came to live action. And even doing their animated division was going in the dumps in the '80s.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I want to give a tip of the cap to Tron. But of the movies that I'm just going to say the ones that I've rewatched the most, and at number three, I'll do Blade Runner.
Okay.
So we've talked about Blade Runner before, but you know, I love the noir element. I
Yeah.
like what they're doing with
Yeah.
remixing genres there. It's so fun to me. And then it's visual. I love how they portray the future. The only honestly, like the weaker part of that movie is probably the story. But
Yeah.
I like the monologue. I think the characters are cool, and there's a couple good fight scenes. But I rewatch it often. Part of me would want to say Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan, but I really don't watch it that much. I'm
Okay.
not a massive Star Trek guy, but I'll do number two, Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Okay.
Again, maybe not the geekiest movie, but I love that
But you
movie.
watch it. Yeah.
And I have rewatched it many times. And then number one, I'm a Spielberg guy, so I'm gonna go with E.T. the Extraterrestrial.
Nice. Okay. My honorable mention is going to be Star Trek II: Wrath of Khan.
Okay.
And that's just because that's the greatest Star Trek movie of all time. I'm not a huge Star Trek fan. My dad is, so I've watched a lot of Star Trek with him when I was a
Nice.
kid, and it's the best movie. I think number three for me, I'm going to go with The Thing.
Oh,
because
good
I
one.
actually
I
watched
love
that
the thing
more
getting its shout out. Yeah.
than I should. And I mean, the effects are just so good. And again, it was not appreciated in its time. And I think now everyone agrees that it's, a great
Yeah.
movie.
Also got a reference in Stranger Things. The
Yep.
teacher and his date are watching it,
Yep.
which is awesome.
Two, I'm gonna go with First Blood. Uh,
Ooh.
I love First Blood. It's the grounded version of Rambo before it becomes off the chart ridiculous.
Right, yeah,
And
just
I think it actually has a lot to say, and so I really like the movie. And then number one, I complained about it already, but The Road Warrior, which I think is a masterpiece, and yeah,
I
I love it.
I love that list too. I mean, it's hard not to find a top 3 in 1982 because there really were so many good movies.
So many good ones.
It was quite fun, and I'm glad that you mentioned that the documentary was out there for us to watch. You can actually see it for free on Tubi. So if you
Yep,
want to download that, you can go watch it. I think the only caveat is there's commercials, but
yep.
if you're fine with that, and it was a great watch and pretty nostalgic. Again, if you're not into that, just rewatch Star Wars. You know,
Or any of the movies that we talked about during this episode, because for the most part, you're not going to be disappointed.
yeah, there's quite a few good ones. So um, that does it, CP, for our episode this week. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed the show. We threw out quite a few questions about everybody's opinions. So shoot us some comments. Let us know, whether you agree that 1982 is the best year to be a geek, or what your thoughts are on any of these movies. Because it's weird. We normally, like last week, we were talking about a singular movie, and this week we were sort of all over the map.
All over the
But
map.
it was fun. I had a great time.
I did
So
too.
I hope everybody that's listening enjoyed the show, and be sure to follow us on Instagram at Film Comp Podcast or at Film Comp Pod. You can find the show at filmmakerscompass.com, where we have a feed of all of our previous episodes and links to the social media I just mentioned. You could follow me at Big Kid D-Man and CP.
You can follow me at NDCal5. Thank you for hanging out and talking 80s movies with us. We'll be back here next week. Until then, keep watching movies.